Today we are talking about Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. We're going to break down some of my favourite scenes and talk about the tips and tricks that the filmmakers have used to make these scenes so compelling, so that we can take those same tricks and use them in our movies to make them even better. It's going to be awesome. Let's jump into our first scene. Boom, and there's our first story beat. This is a great example of a scene that starts in the middle of the action. We've got this unidentified man who's running away from seemingly bad guys with some sort of weird device he throws off the building and then jumps after it. Super cool, and if we think about what the purpose of page one is, in that it's got to set up the genre of the film, this definitely delivers. We know right away it's an action film. You know, you've got guns, you've got chases, you've got death-defying stunts jumping off buildings. Super cool, and definitely delivers on the expectation of the audience. So recently I learned about this idea called the 5 Ws, in that in the opening page or the opening scene of a movie, we want to see 5 things. We want to see who is the movie about, what is the movie about, where is the movie, when is the movie, and why should we care? So let's have a look at this scene and see if we can see the 5 Ws and see how they use that to kind of build the story of this movie. As we already have established, we've got Budapest, we've got these beautiful wide shots, we know where we are. We can also guess a bit of when we are, we kind of get the time period, you know, you can see cars on the road. There's a who, we don't know who they are, but there is at least someone. There's the look at that file, see that? Just that little shot there? That shows us a bit about what's at stake here. To be fair though, we don't know an awful lot about the movie from this scene. We don't really know who the movie is about, we don't really know who this protagonist is. We don't know what's going on. We kind of know that they're after that file, but we don't know what's in it, which means we don't really know why we should be caring about the story either. So it's interesting because what they've done, I think intentionally, is kept a lot of information away from us. We as the audience members have a lot of questions to ask ourselves right here at the beginning of the movie, which means that we want to keep watching to pay off those answers, to figure out what is going on here, and where does Ethan Hunt fit into all of this. Alright, let's check out the next scene, and this one in my opinion is a hugely underrated scene that I'm calling the fan jump.
Jump.
Hey, jump!
Okay, so many good things happening here. First up, just notice the speed at which Jeremy Renner is falling towards the camera. He feels like he's falling so fast, which then makes us think there is no way that he's not going to get impaled on this fan. Just look at the fan, the design of the fan, the production design of having this sharp, angry-looking fan with all these points on it, and then we cut to, boom, the sound, if you notice the sound of the bone cracking, and it's sort of a bit of a misdirect because we think it's Brandt, but actually turns out to be Jane. And so we get that little like setup and payoff of tension. And you'll notice that we stay here with this little scene between Jane and the billionaire. Because what we're doing is we're delaying the payoff. We don't know if Brandt's okay. What happened? The audience is in suspense. We want to know. And so we're delaying that payoff just to hold that tension a little bit longer. What happened to Brandt? Show us. Show us.
Did you jump?
Boom. Payoff. You'll also notice throughout this entire scene the beautiful blue color grade. Here everything feels cold, it feels like, ugh, not so nice. You know, it's not warm, welcoming and friendly, it's cold, it's scary, it's like, ugh, it's got that sort of tone of something's about to go wrong, just in the color grade. There's a lot of what we call conflict stacking, and that's where all these things come into alignment at once. And you get not just one level of conflict, but multiple levels of conflict so that the audience feels like, oh, this is a huge deal. And we can see that it's a long way down. He's very scared. You know, the fan is sharp and it's moving quickly. His friends are yelling at him. He doesn't know if he can trust the tech that's supposed to keep him from being impaled on the fan. So it's done really well in this. And honestly, Mission Impossible is the master of conflict stacking. It's so well done. Let's move on to our next scene. This is the finale fight scene of the movie at the parking garage between Ethan and Hendrix. Always good to have an objective for the fight, so the case provides all the story beats throughout the fight. Let's have a look. Oh, and we're watching the case. You'll notice all throughout this scene, there's little insert shots of the case, because again, that's the objective. We want to know where the case is at all times relative to the characters. Also, you'll notice that there's sort of a dissonance between the pace of the cuts. There are points where it's cut really quickly, and then you'll get a little bit of a reorient where things are just held for a touch longer, because you want to reorient the audience throughout the fight shot. You can't do fast cuts for 2 minutes straight. You've got to give them little beats to reset where they are, and so they don't get bored of the pace. By the way, I just want to chuck some kudos to the entire team. They built this parking garage in an aircraft hangar. This is a set, this isn't an actual place in the world. And they built all these hydraulic moving parts. Obviously, there's a lot of VFX to complement that and to build out the entire space, but it is really impressive what they were able to achieve. This is actually really smart right here, because we don't want to hold on the shot of Ethan in the driver's seat the entire time, because if we do that, it's going to end up being a really slow-paced scene, and we want to build the pace up with the cuts because we're getting to some more intense moments. You know, he's about to crash into the ground in this car. So what they do is they've got this one shot where he's here inside the car, we've got a side angle, same thing, and then we have this really creative shot. We can see him in the rear view mirror. Super smart, because now we can see not only a front angle, which gives us something to see how far he is from the ground, we can get all of that sort of perspective and all the storytelling there, but we can still see his reaction. Genius. So you'll notice that there's a bunch of intercutting here in the finale, and this happens a lot, especially inside of team movies like this. We'll intercut from one segment of the team over here doing one thing, and one segment of the team over here doing another thing, equally as important. And if you're really smart, like the guys are here in Mission Impossible, you'll make both of their objectives intertwined. In other words, they both have to succeed at separate things that are happening simultaneously in order for the mission to be a success, because that is just conflict stacking to the max. We talked about that already this video. We've got a bunch of conflict stacking here, right? Like Ethan's got to get the case, the other guys have to fix the relay station, Ethan's got to take out Hendricks, they've got to take out Wistrom. There's all sorts of conflict stacking, you know, Jane gets shot, all sorts of stuff. So it's really well done. And you'll notice they're cutting every time that there's some drama that we want to follow. They're leaving us in suspense for a little while longer, right? Every time that we want to see a payoff, they're cutting to the other scene. And notice just these couple of shots here. We're intercutting every now and then to the nuclear missile that's flying across the Earth. And what that's doing is just giving us a ticking clock. We can physically see where on Earth this missile is relative to its final destination, and we can see it's closing in. And so we kind of get that all time's running out. You know, it's the ticking clock that keeps the action moving and keeps the audience really on the edge of their seat. A fight without a ticking clock is just a fight. What you need to try and do is find a way to create that ticking clock, and that is here. Really well done. Man, that is such a good finale. So well done. And again, it's just that conflict stacking, it's the intercutting between scenes, keeping the tension high, keeping the pace high. Honestly, just an incredible finale. Really well done. All right, it's time to check out our favorite scene in the entire movie. Yes, it is the Burj Khalifa climb. Let's have a look. So if you don't know, Tom Cruise did this for real. He's actually on the outside of the Burj Khalifa. They got permission to rig up everything and go like hundreds of stories up in the air and get this to happen. They had to pull windows out of the building and they had to do all sorts of rigging to make it possible. I hear they practiced quite a bit. They had like a stage that they set up where they could practice getting Tom into position quickly because the harness is not very nice to stay in. And you know, you've got to get the helicopters all in the right place and you've got to get the cameras rolling at the right time on the right people. And it's a whole operation to make this happen, and they trained for it as much as they could. So it's exciting to see the payoff of their work here. And it's cool that they just decided to keep things really long and drawn out and just really grounded for this because it is real. So we're getting this crane up shot because we want to look down and we want to see how far up he is and how far down he has if he falls. Like, wow. Let's let the moment sit, you know? See how we're not cutting? We're just staying right present with the character. Notice there's no music, just sound. Because we know what it sounds like to be up high. We don't need music to make this any more tense than it is because the audience knows this was done for real. And notice here that we're establishing the sound of the glove working because that's going to be important later. Just the sound cue of what it sounds like when the glove works, we can contrast that later with when it doesn't work. We can infer just from the sound design, uh-oh, something's wrong. You'll notice that every time that we're outside, we're pretty much always looking at a high angle. And that's because we want to see how far he has to fall, or we don't want to see how far he falls, but the filmmakers, they know we kind of do want to see how far he has to fall. He's climbing up. He's far away as well, small in the frame. It's a nice wide shot. So again, we can see how far he has to go and how far he has to fall. Now this is the shot, look at this, pulling out, super wide, we can see just how far he has to go, and now we have the added stakes of he's more likely to fall off because he doesn't have that glove. Oh, look at how far up he is, look at how far away he is, brilliant shot, pulling out like that. All right, let's talk about that for a second. So you can kind of hear that little rattle that starts. And that again is another little auditory cue that something's about to go wrong. You know, we know that rattling generally is not a good sound, so we're kind of anticipating something's gonna go wrong. And we've set up that he's so high up, a fall would be bad. Now you'll notice all throughout this scene that what we're doing when we cut back to the people inside the apartment is not only are we doing that sort of intercutting for tension, but we're also cheating how far up the building Tom Cruise can be. So if we had to see the whole climb up 11 stories, whatever, it would take ages. It would take us like half an hour to actually climb up that much. So for the sake of screen time and keeping the pace of the scene going, we're actually using that intercut between the different characters in the apartment. We're using that to cheat how far he has left to go to keep that pace there. Little hack. Okay. There we go. Incredible scene. So well done. And just hats off to Tom Cruise and everyone on the team for such a compelling scene. Honestly, there's something about knowing that it was done for real. It's so well done. So there we go, that is my breakdown of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Thank you so much for watching, I hope this video was helpful. Hope you got some tools and tips and techniques that you can use in your films from this. I certainly have got a lot of stuff that I'm going to try and emulate based on this movie, because it is incredible. If you have things that you noticed that I didn't talk about, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to learn from you. And if you have some things that you want to see me break down, some scenes, movies, future projects, let me know, because I also would love to break them down, spend some time looking at them, learn from them as well. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will see you soon.